Hey, Steelers fans, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into everything surrounding our Pittsburgh Steelers, dissecting what went wrong in that tough playoff loss, and exploring the stories that the box score can't tell you. Last night, the scoreboard read Texans 30, Steelers 6, but the reality of the game was far more nuanced than the final number suggests. For the majority of the matchup, it was a nail-biter, a 7-6 contest that kept you on the edge of your seat, and only in the closing moments did the gap widen with a couple of late scores. And yet, the headlines don't tell the full story of what happened on the field, the strategic missteps, and the recurring frustrations that have defined this team's season. There are multiple angles to explore: the offense, the defense, the game plan, but one issue stood out above all: the middle of the field and the utilization of the player who should have been the linchpin of our passing attack. Pat Fryer, our most reliable and versatile weapon in the heart of the field, was virtually invisible when the team needed him most. Watching the game, you couldn't help but notice how clearly the Steelers positioned themselves to avoid taking full advantage of his abilities. And yes, credit to the Houston defense. They executed their assignments well, especially against the run, but the opportunities to exploit them were there. The Texans' safeties positioned themselves high and wide, almost daring the Steelers to challenge the middle of the field. It's a strategy born of familiarity, knowing that the coaching staff has historically shied away from aggressive plays through the center. Yet here we were, witnessing a prime opportunity squandered again and again. Fryer was officially targeted only 3 times throughout the game. One was a throwaway in the end zone, a casual toss that had no real intent. Another sailed 20 feet over his head on a deep route. And the third, a fourth-quarter gem, showcased exactly what he brings to the table: precision, strength, and the ability to beat defenders in tight spaces. And what did he do? He did what he always does. He executed flawlessly, defying the coverage around him. That's the kind of player you should be leveraging consistently, especially in high-stakes playoff scenarios. And yet, the hesitation to do so has become a recurring theme, one that reflects a deeper structural problem within the team's leadership. Over the last several months, this pattern has repeated itself. Opportunities to take the game into the opponent's hands were consistently avoided, and the result was predictable. The coaching staff, particularly in their prioritization and game planning, has shown an unwillingness to fully trust the offensive weapons at their disposal. The conversation surrounding who is responsible for this, whether it's the head coach, the coordinators, or the quarterback, is ongoing, but the undeniable fact is that the solution was right there on the field. Fryer represents the path forward, the most dependable option to address the team's persistent struggles in moving the ball effectively, yet he was systematically underutilized. Looking back at previous roster decisions, the integration of other players has sometimes overshadowed the obvious talents already on the roster. Trades and acquisitions brought in players like John Smith, and while they have potential, the existing synergy among the team's core offensive contributors, particularly Pat Fryer, Darnell Washington, and Connor Hayward, was disrupted. Even when newer players failed to contribute effectively, the offensive game plan remained skewed, prioritizing the less productive options over the proven talent. The question isn't about personal capabilities, it's about opportunity and trust, elements that seem to have been consistently mismanaged. From a defensive standpoint, there were flashes of brilliance. The Steelers managed to hold Houston to a mere 7 points for much of the game, pressuring the quarterback and creating turnovers. Yet, without offensive support, these efforts were largely nullified. There were moments where the team seemed poised to capitalize on turnovers, but the offensive unit was unable to convert, leaving opportunities wasted and frustrations mounting. The gap between defensive success and offensive inefficiency was never more glaring than it was in this playoff matchup. Players themselves are caught in this cycle, forced to navigate a system that doesn't always align with their strengths. Post-game interactions revealed a mix of disbelief and restrained frustration among the roster. Fryer, in particular, displayed his usual professionalism, quietly signaling his readiness and capability without complaint. But the reality of the situation was evident. The team's offensive identity was misaligned with the talent available. And when the quarterback is past 40 years old as Aaron Rodgers is, these misalignments become magnified. Decisions made in split seconds can no longer be corrected by experience or athleticism alone, and the consequences were visible in real time, with sacks, turnovers, and failed conversions compounding the team's challenges. It's impossible to discuss the offensive woes without acknowledging the broader organizational context. The coaching approach, heavily weighted toward defense, has often left offensive innovation on the back burner. When asked about these issues, responses like the focus on third down conversions or limited offensive snaps feel inadequate. The logic doesn't match the reality on the field, especially when you have a weapon like Fryer, who can consistently create first downs and generate big plays. And the quarterback, despite years of expertise and high football IQ, is hampered when the system itself restricts his options. These limitations are systemic, embedded in the way decisions are made from the top down. Even among veteran players and team insiders, the sentiment is clear. The avoidance of the middle of the field and the underutilization of top-tier talent has been a recurring frustration. It's not about individual skill or effort. It's about structural constraints and strategic choices. Conversations after the game revealed an unspoken consensus. If only the game plan had leveraged Fryer more effectively, the outcome could have been very different. Yet the hesitation persists, raising questions about leadership, prioritization, and the long-term trajectory of the team. And so, as we reflect on this game, we see a season defined not by talent deficits, but by missed opportunities and cautious play calling. The Steelers have the pieces to compete at the highest level, but the alignment between coaching philosophy and player capability remains a barrier. With playoff pressure magnifying every decision, the team's shortcomings are highlighted more starkly than ever, revealing both the potential and the frustration inherent in this roster. There's no shortage of skill, no shortage of dedication, but the strategic approach, particularly on offense, has yet to fully embrace the tools at hand. As we move forward from that game, it's clear that the issues we've been dissecting aren't isolated to a single matchup. They're part of a pattern that has stretched across the season, revealing a team with talent and promise, yet hampered by inconsistencies and strategic hesitations. Watching the Steelers last night, it was almost surreal to see how opportunities were presented only to be left unexploited. Each drive seemed to circle back to the same question. Why aren't we putting the ball where it matters most, into the hands of the player who has repeatedly shown he can make a difference under pressure? Pat Fryer is that player, and yet the hesitancy in targeting him, the reluctance to challenge the middle of the field, felt like a self-imposed limitation that defined the rhythm of the entire game. Aaron Rodgers had a challenging night, and it's important to contextualize that. At 42 years old, every second counts, every misstep is magnified, and every pressure-filled moment can spiral into consequences that younger quarterbacks might escape. 17 completions against 16 incompletions, 146 yards. These numbers tell part of the story, but they don't capture the underlying reality of decision-making under duress. 4 sacks, 2 fumbles, and a late touchdown that effectively sealed the game illustrate not just mistakes, but systemic issues. When your offensive line can't consistently protect the quarterback, when your go-to options aren't integrated into the game plan, even a player of Rodgers' caliber is forced into situations that compromise the team's performance. And then there's the supporting cast. Kenny Gainwell had moments of brilliance, but left yards on the field, unable to consistently turn opportunities into momentum. Brandon Echols struggled in coverage, giving up critical plays that compounded the pressure on the offense. Troy Fallinoff faced difficulties handling Houston's relentless pass rush and the interior run game, particularly with Jaylen Warren, while showing flashes of toughness and determination, was underutilized. Warren's 12 carries for 43 yards demonstrated both his potential and the limited faith in giving him the ball more frequently, restricting the team's ability to control the tempo. Isaac Salu's struggles, combined with Patrick Queen and P.T.O. Wilson's challenges in stopping the run, highlighted vulnerabilities that opponents quickly identified and exploited. Cam Hayward, usually a steadying force, was relatively quiet, and Jalen Ramsey, whose early season excitement generated significant buzz, seemed to fade into the background in recent games. Chucky Clark receiving reps over Kyle Duggar sparked debate, though the decision ultimately didn't translate into improved performance. This is not just about isolated errors. It's about a lack of cohesion, a gap between potential and execution that reflects broader organizational trends. The result is not a failure of individual effort, but a cumulative effect of strategy, planning, and decision-making that has repeatedly left the team short of its objectives. When you step back and view the season as a whole, the playoff loss feels less like a single disappointment and more like the culmination of recurring patterns. Opportunities to challenge defenses aggressively, to take calculated risks, and to leverage the players best suited for critical situations were consistently missed. And while the defense performed admirably at times, keeping scores low and generating turnovers, without the offensive unit converting those chances, their efforts were rendered largely symbolic. The balance between defensive prowess and offensive efficiency remains fragile, and last night it tipped decidedly in the wrong direction. One of the most striking aspects of the game was the visible professionalism of players like Pat Fryer, whose composure and cooperative nature contrast sharply with the strategic decisions around him. After the game, his quiet demeanor, the head in his hands, the measured interactions with teammates, all spoke volumes. This isn't a player demanding the spotlight or airing grievances publicly. It's a player ready to perform, restrained only by the circumstances created by the system around him. That contrast between individual capability and organizational hesitation is a recurring theme, one that underscores the frustrations fans, analysts, and players alike have voiced throughout the season. The coaching approach remains central to these discussions. The emphasis on defense, while a hallmark of the Steelers' identity under Mike Tomlin, has often resulted in offensive conservatism that suppresses creativity and limits opportunities for explosive plays. Explanations about third-down conversions or limited offensive snaps fall flat when the most reliable offensive weapon is systematically underutilized. The accountability lies at the top. The head coach sets the tone, the philosophy, and ultimately bears responsibility for both the successes and failures. In high-stakes playoff games, those choices are magnified, and the consequences of misalignment between talent and strategy become undeniable. The broader pattern extends beyond one game. Over the course of the season, similar scenarios played out repeatedly, revealing a reluctance to adapt mid-game and a tendency to prioritize risk avoidance over assertive play calling. Even when the team faced defenses that were vulnerable, opportunities to challenge them aggressively were overlooked. In high-pressure moments, hesitation became the default, reinforcing a cycle that limited the team's potential. Fans watching closely can see the talent, the effort, and the intelligence on the field, but also the structural factors that prevented those assets from translating into consistent success. Players' reactions, both on and off the field, provide further insight into the dynamics at play. Conversations with veterans reveal an understanding of the systemic issues without resorting to overt criticism. There's recognition of the talent, the capability, and the readiness of teammates to step up, contrasted with the strategic choices that constrain them. The disconnect between potential and execution is a recurring theme, evident not just in statistics, but in the body language, the pacing, and the rhythm of the game itself. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In what could be one of the most shocking moves of the NFL offseason, whispers around the league suggest that Aaron Rodgers may have already made a life-altering decision, leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sources close to the quarterback indicate that Rodgers has been quietly evaluating his options and may be preparing to depart the organization, sending ripples of uncertainty through one of the league's most storied franchises. The Steelers, a team long associated with stability and loyalty, reportedly have already been made aware of Rodgers' thinking. Insiders claim that preliminary discussions with management have taken place, and while nothing is officially announced, The mere notion of Rodgers exploring an exit has ignited speculation among fans and analysts alike. The move, if true, would mark a dramatic pivot not just for Rodgers' career, but for the Steelers' strategic planning for years to come. Rodgers' tenure with the Steelers, though relatively brief, has been closely watched. Many point to his on-field brilliance and leadership as reasons why the franchise would fight to keep him, while others note that the quarterback's desire for a different challenge or environment could outweigh any contract negotiations or loyalty pledges. With the NFL landscape constantly shifting, a departure of this magnitude could spark a flurry of trade rumors, potential blockbuster deals, and a complete reimagining of the Steelers' offensive approach. The implications extend beyond Pittsburgh. A Rodgers exit would immediately place the team in a quarterback quandary, forcing the front office to consider internal options or pursue aggressive moves in free agency. Meanwhile, Rodgers himself would suddenly become the most coveted player on the market, drawing interest from franchises eager to secure a proven elite signal caller. Analysts are already speculating about which teams have the financial flexibility and roster fit to tempt Rodgers into a new chapter of his career. While neither party has confirmed anything publicly, the rumor mill is working overtime. Social media, sports talk shows, and insider reports are buzzing with scenarios, ranging from a dramatic trade to Rodgers testing free agency in pursuit of his next big challenge. For Steelers fans, the uncertainty is almost unbearable. For the league, the potential domino effect is electrifying. One thing is clear. If Rodgers is serious about leaving, the NFL could be on the brink of one of its most seismic shifts in recent memory. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.